Hello YouTube. There are ruins in South Africa that makes us think about the origins of the human race. The ruins of Bakoni. Recently, archaeologists are finding more and more evidence that in ancient time, quite advanced and mysterious structures were built around the world. Africa is no exception in this regard. As an example of an unusual ancient building found by archaeologists on that continent, the so-called place of happiness can be cited. The place where the mitochondrial Eve lived. This unusual structure, similar to a maze, is located in the hills of South Africa in Mpumalanga province, in the vicinity of the modern city of Machodorp. Machodorp is also referred to as eNtokozweni, which means the place of happiness, and the area, while remote, is certainly tranquil. The enclosed circular stone walls and linear pathways lie quietly in the landscape. Officially, it is believed that the place of happiness, or the ruins of Bakoni, was created in the 16th century by local tribes. However, some researchers believe that these are much older structures, the age of which may date back to the time of that almost mitochondrial Eve. It is believed that the hypothetical ancestors of modern man lived in this area, and the unusual ruins could be a witness to a forgotten and incredibly ancient civilization. Structures similar to the Bakoni ruins in Mpumalanga province can be found elsewhere. There are many local legends about these structures. Thanks to these legends, the place of happiness is also known as the lost city of South Africa. Representatives of African tribes who lived in this region, according to the official account, made changes to the landscape in the 16th century, creating a type of labyrinth for agricultural purposes. According to scientists, the place of happiness can be considered evidence that advanced agricultural technologies, including crop rotation and managed animal husbandry, existed in Africa long before to what is referred to as colonial era. However, scientists still do not know exactly when the Bakoni structures were created. Some researchers believe that these structures appeared on the territory of the modern Mpumalanga province no more than a few hundred years ago. Others believe that the place of happiness is evidence of the agricultural revolution of the Paleolithic people, and the age of the structures can be up to 250,000 years. The Bakoni can be traced back to at least the early 16th centuries, but the culture is probably far, far older. Giving the ruins themselves can be dated to an incredible 200,000 years by some people's estimates. Official science believes that the structures of the Bakoni are nothing more than cattle pens. Cattle were kept here at night, and during the day they were driven out to pastures. Also, some structures could be elements of terraced agriculture. According to scientists, it should have taken a lot of time for the ancient people to build these walls. Some structures were built earlier, others much later. Inside the structures, archaeologists have discovered the remains of ancient pottery. This tableware was used, according to researchers, for storing food. Well, just how old these structures are is anyone's guess, as they have not been thoroughly researched or excavated. Again, they could be anywhere between 25,000 and 250,000 years old. Archaeologists and historians know very little about the Bakoni ruins. The Bakoni people are referred to not in any written form but in oral history, and are considered by local archaeologists as different groups of people with different origins who arrived across a period of time. They became collectively known as people from the north, Bakoni. We do not know, well, we do know that the structures on the hillsides and beyond were built long before the arrival of Europeans to South Africa. And again, they were used for advanced farming techniques. The sheer size and position of the stone retaining walls they built across the escarpment is thought to have been crucial to the success of their farming system. But the relative similarity of walls across hundreds of kilometers does suggest an established society, as archaeologist Baynard proposes when he speaks of a settled society with social and cultural continuity over time. The 1800s brought what is referred to as colonization, and the Bakoni went from being a functioning, diverse community to a conforming, uniform one. And many tribesmen were absorbed into the Peida, Swazi, and Ndebele tribes. Scientists also do not know which people built the structures of the place of happiness. There are only a few hypotheses on this score. For example, paleontologist Dr. Cyril Chromnik believes that these walls were built not by Africans but by representatives of the Dravidian people of ancient India. And we'll speak about it more. Other researchers point out that the ruins of Bakoni have similarities with those places described in Sumerian legends about the creation of the world. Researcher Michael Tellinger from South Africa believes that the ruins of Bakoni have nothing to do with the agriculture at all. According to Mr. Tellinger, he was able to establish that the circles emit electromagnetic waves and sounds at certain frequencies. According to the researcher, these stone walls were once part of a Pan-African energy system designed for resonant sound gold mining. His esoteric hypothesis suggests they were built to create huge amounts of energy to find and extract gold from mines for people from another planet who arrived on Earth in search of gold, the Annunaki, as they refer to. Well, the last time I saw Tellinger was in 2018 at a conference, but we didn't have much time to speak, almost none. And we couldn't share experience about field research in South Africa. Of course, mine predates him by decades. Of course, most of the alternative hypotheses put forward by researchers regarding the ruins of Bakoni are not recognized by official science. At the moment, scientists are more concerned about the state of these structures. Almost no one is following the place of happiness today, as far as I know, and it is gradually being destroyed. Unfortunately, it is not known exactly who built the place of happiness and when. This would have helped. One thing is clear, our history is fraught with a lot of interesting and still unknown to us facts, stories, developments. The ruins of Bakoni and other similar structures certainly require increased attention and should be preserved for future generations. Let's look now at one very interesting hypothesis. Did ancient Dravidian seafarers establish the first gold mines in South Africa? Well, Cape Town based, of that I'm not sure anymore, but he was some years ago, Slovak-American historian Dr. Cyril Chromnik, or Kirill Chromnik, has produced a vast number of research materials, and it kind of moves the story back 2,000 years. Dr. Cyril Chromnik is a historian on Africa and the Indian Ocean seaboard, with extensive study and field experience in related languages, archaeology, ethnology, and religions. And his PhD is from the Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York, United States. Dr. Chromnik studied and specialized in Dravidian culture, having spent many years in the Indian subcontinent. He came to Africa and discovered the signs of the same Dravidian culture, which permeates the island of Madagascar, as well as the East African seaboard and further inland, all the way from Cape to Kenya and beyond. He asserts that an ancient settlement of gold miners in the eastern Transvaal and Swaziland with roots that go back to the early Dravidian seafarers who had expert navigation skills and a lust for the African gold. The term Dravidian comes from the Sanskrit term Dravida, historically referring to Tamil Indians. There are three subgroups within the Dravidian language family: the South, the Central, and the North Dravidian, which correspond to these regions on the Indian subcontinent. The story goes back even further than this. As a leading proponent of the popular so-called alternative history, and there is a hypothesis to it, or what they call theory, Dr. Hromnik contends that Mpumalanga was settled by ancient seafaring Hindus about 40,000 years ago. They came for the ivory, the iron, the gold, and erected temples and also astronomical observatories on mountaintops. They built strong stone-walled cities from which they hunted, mined, and traded throughout southern Africa. Dr. Hromnik believes that these people, who were mainly speakers of Dravidian languages and early Shivites by religion, were responsible for the ancient gold mines found in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. Mpumalanga, South Africa, the site of the richest gold mine in the world, also falls into this category. The accounts of people recognized as Indian in the Southern Africa region, where Europeans first appeared in the 15th century, has been a perplexing question for historians. Why were these people there? The legacy of the Hindu Empire is still reflected in local place names. Based on over a decade of research and his knowledge of Dravidian history, Dr. Hromnik believes that in the common era, Indian traders named Komates crossed the Indian Ocean in sailing boats manned by their Indonesian slaves. Like the Dutch India Company, who came later, they were driven by monsoon trade winds blowing towards Africa and would return on reverse trade winds to India with their gold and ivory. To some researchers, this is supported by biblical records which tell of the existence of gold and of the ancient gold trade in Africa. The Komates settled with their Indonesian slaves in these regions and then gradually moved inland from the river mouths, seeking gold and building their temples known as Litaku. They mixed with the local Kung or Bushmen, who are also called Kungsan. This gave rise to the Hottentot or Hottentot. Dr. Hromnik believes the legacy of this Hindu empire is still reflected in many local place names. Between Natal and Mpumalanga, South Africa, near the Swaziland border with South Africa, one finds the name Komati everywhere. This is also the region where Shebe, the richest gold mine in the world, is situated. Komati George, Komati River, Lomati River, Komati Land, and Komati Port. It's not much of a stretch to see that Komati is a contraction of the name Komates. It is estimated that there are over 20,000 ancient stone ruins scattered throughout the mountains of southern Africa. Dr. Hromnik's controversial theories or hypotheses were first aired in the early 1980s, and they did not sit well with the academic establishment nor with the political mainstream in those years. Dr. Hromnik asserts that the Indian miners and their Indonesian slaves cohabited with the local people, variously known as Kung, Kwena, Hottentot, and Hoi Hoi, and in addition, that their genetic traces are to be found in much of the contemporary South African population. Well, not everybody liked these ideas, for sure. Reportedly, years ago, he was excluded from academic institutions, treated like a pariah, and that he received refusals to publish his materials. I think today it would seem that Dr. Homnick's proposition of an ancient Indian connection to the gold in South Africa, backed by research that spans for almost 3 decades, is slowly gaining ground. But, I have evidence based on research done by Lawrence Green and others that other people, other ethnicities, has also settled in southern Africa millennia ago, including the Chinese. And I'll speak about them in later videos, as well as some other fascinating long-lost cities of Africa and South and Southwest Africa, paranormal phenomena too. So this is what I wanted to let you know today, and if you are ever in the area, of course, you should go and see what is left of the Bakoni ruins. It's very interesting continent. And like I said, I'll bring you more stories. If you can support my research, please do so through the links you'll find in the description to this video. Please tell others about my channel too. I appreciate your attention to my work. Thank you.